Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being. Welcome to the 296th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast. And of course, welcome to 2026. I hope you had a good break, time off, or celebrating if that's your thing, whatever you do. And welcome to a new Gregorian year. Don't forget the podcast is now fortnightly, but if you're missing weekly content, you have 6 years worth of episodes to listen to and reflect back on. And if you want my handy guide that lists the episodes with a clickable link, you can get it at bit.ly/DMPG23. So I think the traditional end of the Gregorian calendar is often a time for reflections for many people. It's an opportunity to look back and also set the tone for the year ahead. And I think it's also a useful exercise to celebrate the often forgotten things that we have achieved in our personal, professional lives and consider what we want to build on. Whilst, of course, remembering there are many new years that we can celebrate, global events, global celebrations and religious new years as well. At the start of the year, I set a word to set the tone for the year ahead. And the word for 2025 was nurtured. And I do recommend this word to you. It was a good one and did definitely set the tone for the year. And if you'd like to hear about previous years and what the words were, you can at episode 269, 2024 in review, episode 226, 2023, the year in review, episode 174, 2022, the year in review, episode 122, my year of gratitude 2021, episode 70, what 2020 taught me, episode 17, 12 business lessons I learned in 2019. So I don't know about you, but I feel on a personal level, this year was much better and lighter than 2024 in many ways. However, it is vital to acknowledge the severe problems around the globe, wars, genocides, displacements, and imprisonments. So while it's definitely been a better year for me as an individual, thank goodness, it's not without the need to challenge the status quo and keep fighting for justice for others and around the globe. I do also feel like the challenges I've experienced over the last 4 years have served me quite well. And I'm laughing there because I don't believe that suffering builds character. I don't think that's what we should have, but just to acknowledge that actually it's helped me to be more pragmatic and take things day by day. Being someone who loved to plan pre-2020 to now someone who definitely goes with the flow and is able to leave things to the last minute in my personal life, not in my business life. I want to make that very clear. It's surprisingly something that's served me well. And as always, I hope you're enjoying the content of the podcast so far. And if you want to keep up to date, then why not join my newsletter? When you join my newsletter, you will receive my white paper on inclusive language and mental health at work. And that link is bit.ly/ILMHCK. So for those of you who like stats, let's start with the stats for the year. So in total, there have been 60,225 podcast downloads with 295 episodes to date. Obviously, this is episode 295. Because it's fortnightly, we don't have the full 52 episodes. So it's 26 episodes every year now. The new minutes of content is 384. Training sessions delivered were 56. Session hours, so the training session hours were 184. TEDx talk views, so thank you if you've watched, I'm now at 4,648. And also my continuing professional development hours stand at 59 for the last year. And the number one for the Frameworthy portrait, which I will talk about in the roundup. So what happened last year, kicking off with January 2025? Well, I finished my job with Hatch Enterprises. It was a 2-day-a-week fixed-term contract from January 24 to January 25. So my last day was a team away day and I got to say goodbye to people. And they did give me a beautiful pineapple plant, which I still have in my office. So Naomi, if you're listening, I want to let you know that I've still got that beautiful plant you bought me. I also did some work for the Older People Wales Commission, and we kicked off the cohort 2 of the AHUA reciprocal mentoring program. And the podcast theme was workplace wellbeing culture. In February, I had the D Young & Co webinar. They are a legal firm. Jenny Garrett's Rise and Renew retreat and Sense health and wellbeing session for PhD students. So that is a specific group looking at a geological PhD research group. So I did a specific session for them about wellbeing because PhD students and mental health is quite a specific area. And the podcast theme was all about equality, diversity, inclusion, and power, including a breakdown of the power wheel, which has proved to be quite a popular episode. In March, there was a lot of online course prep for sessions coming up for the rest of the year. I worked with the Wheel in Ireland on their Universal Design online course, and we ran some pilots in terms of the course and some face-to-face feedback. And the podcast theme was International Women's Day, Accelerate Action, and also a podcast episode on women's mental load in the workplace. In April, saw the launch of the University of Sussex Ghana mentoring program, and I delivered the training for the Sussex mentors to discuss cross-cultural mentoring, what might work, and how to set things up. There were the Work Life Central webinars, a really great organization that supports organizations with their work-life balance. And there was, of course, the Leeds Leadership Conference, where I was interviewed by Professor Jasjit Singh. We had a really great conversation about race, racism, and higher education and academia. And I ran a 2-day mental health first aid course at WYG in Leeds. And the podcast themes were about stress, because it's Stress Awareness Month, why your workplace should not be a family, and the stress of filling out equal ops forms and what can be done to make them easier. In May, again, we kicked off the Equity and Leadership Program with the White Rose University Consortium. I did some work with Bradford Council about supporting their education teams on disability in the workplace for colleagues, and a lot of work with a particular team at Imperial on culture and disability and neurodivergence. And the podcast theme was community mental health and wellbeing. June was really a month about check-ins and catch-ups with many of my clients and customers, and I ran another 2-day mental health first aid program at University of London. And the podcast theme, because of the Mental Health Awareness Week, was loneliness and mental health. July was, I have to say, the busiest July I've ever had, I think, since working for myself. And I did a lot of coaching for managers, team coaching, away days, the second day of the Equity and Leadership Program. And of course, the portrait exhibition was launched. So meeting some really amazing, talented and phenomenal people. My particular launch was in Birmingham, and just the brilliant people that I met and their portraits, and having a really good conversation there. And mine is still shamefully due to be hung up. So that's something I need to do, but I need to put it somewhere where if you do have Zoom calls with me, you're not going to see it in the background. But yeah, so the portrait, and it's such an honor. So I have it, and I still have to put it up. There was also a lot of inclusive leadership prep for the University of London, which I'll talk about more because the launch was in October. I also took a week off to do an art summer school in lino cut, which is definitely not my forte, but I had a great time doing it. And the podcast theme was human diversity and biodiversity, plus South Asian Heritage Month, roots to roots. So ROOTS to ROUTES. August, I actually managed to have some time off, which is rare for a stretch of time, and do some prep for the busy autumn coming up. And again, this theme for the podcast was South Asian Heritage Month, including something I'm really passionate about, which you will know if you're a regular listener, which is stop asking people where they're from. So a whole episode on that and what you can do instead and why it's offensive, and the number of times people will say, oh, why can't I have this conversation? So if you want to know more about that, please do check out that episode. In September, we had the final day of Cohort 2 for the White Rose University Consortium Equity and Leadership Program at the University of York. It was the launch of the British Academy's Early Career Research SHAPE program. And I had the 2-day training for starting my OCN Level 4 Work Needs Assessor programs for neurodivergent conditions in the workplace. So that was a big chunk of my CPD hours. And the podcast was all about division in the workplace and what workplaces can do. October was the launch of the University of London's Inclusive Leadership Programme, and obviously a lot of work went into the background around that. So it's a programme that's going to train 200 to 300 leaders and managers on inclusive leadership. So designing, developing and delivering that programme. So we had the kickoff, we had a number of sessions. It's 1.5 days, 1 day face-to-face and a half day online. And the podcast theme was Black History Month, of course, why it's important, and my Black History Month journey. November was, again, the continuation of the University of London's Inclusive Leadership Programme. And as part of that, this was the follow-up half-day sessions. And again, the Wheels Universal Design online programme, we had the pilot project too. So looking at tweaking, making changes, and how delegates found the second iteration. And the podcast was all about stress, money, and mental health. And also the second episode in the series was why slashing DEI budgets is a bad idea. December, I saw it was more University of London Inclusive Leadership Programs and SOAS Staff Networks relaunch. So great to be working with SOAS and a dear friend, Claire Herbert. And the podcast was all about Disability History Month with a review of the Lilac Review. So a really important review about disabled entrepreneurship. And the second episode in that series was supporting carers at work. So the other thing about 2026, as I mentioned earlier, there are lots of New Year's, there are lots of different descriptions. There's not just the Gregorian one, which is numerical. Of course, in the Chinese zodiac, it's still the year of the snake, a year for shedding. And there's definitely been a lot for me of getting rid of old things, sharing things, seeing what doesn't serve me anymore, like physical objects. But from February 17th to 3rd of March, depending on the time and the specific culture, there'll be Lunar New Year. And in Chinese zodiac framework, we will move into the year of the fire horse. So this represents energy and movement forward. So the idea of the shedding and then moving forward. So let's see. And it's going to be really interesting. And my year for 2026 is luck. Well, it's actually the Adinkra word from a gathering that I go to. So I will report more about that. And I'd love to hear from you as well. So what are the lessons that you've learned? What's been the theme? Do you set a word? Do you stick to it? I also do a vision board to support my word, and it's on the back of my office door, so I can look at it every single day. So I'd love to hear from you and what 2025 taught you. And here's to a happy, healthy, and positive year ahead for all of you. And again, I just want to thank all the listeners. I've had some really lovely messages from people. Someone who said the podcast is one of their top 3 of the year. So if you have your, Spotify Wrapped or your roundup from wherever you listen to your podcast from, if that's you, I'd love to hear from you. And if the things that I've done and created and delivered on are of interest to you, remember, if you're looking to foster a positive wellbeing culture and would like guidance on creating strategies tailored to your team's needs, then of course I'm here to support you. Reach out to explore our training, consultancy and coaching services designed to build a healthy, resilient workplace culture. And on that point, I should say another exciting project that's been bubbling in the background is that there will be a newly designed website in 2026 launching towards the end of the month. So that is something else that's been happening at the end of 2025. But if you'd like to get in touch with me to find out more, you can of course email me at Leyla, Leyla at diverseminds.co.uk. And of course, if you enjoy the show, please leave me a review wherever you listen to your podcast from. And I'd love to hear from you as listeners. If you want to drop me a message on my SpeakPipe, it is bit.ly/SPKPDMP. And don't forget my TEDx talk if you haven't watched it. The link is bit.ly/TEDxWolves, WOLVESLO. And it's all about the connection between culture, race, and mental health. So I really wish you all the best. I hope that you have a great start to the year. It goes the way that you want. And remember, if it doesn't, there are lots of New Year's that we can celebrate throughout the year. So take care, listeners. And until the next episode, where I'll be talking about workplace wellbeing trends for 2026. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.